Thanks for watching Morning Live. Now, in Zimbabwe, opposition parties and civil society are calling on government to acknowledge allegations of human rights abuses aggravated by crackdowns on protests. Now, these incidents include the arrest of Job Sikhala, a member of the legislature and a member of parliament from the country's main opposition party, the Movement for Democratic Change, or MDC. The government has also been criticized for the arrest of investigative journalist and human rights activist Hopewell Chin'ono, and he's been vocal about allegations of government corruption and human rights abuses. Chin'ono is still in police custody after being denied bail yet again. So to discuss this, we're joined by Zimbabwe Secretary for Information, Mr. Nick Mangwana. Thanks so much and welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Mangwana, as you heard, there are lots of allegations being made against the government of Zimbabwe about human rights abuses, amongst other things. Can you give us your perspective of what is happening in Zimbabwe right now?
What's happening in Zimbabwe right now is that normalcy is carrying on. People are going on about their business. And those people that are alleged to have committed crimes are being arraigned before the courts. It's as simple as that. What we had in July was a build-up to the overthrow of the government, and statements were made to that effect that they needed to overthrow the government or remove the constitutional order by any means necessary, court and uncourt. And because of that, because of such machinations and plans, certain people were arrested for planning and plotting such subversive acts. And now what we're dealing with in August is a spillover from that, where people are still being made to account for whatever statements or plans they had in place. And so that's where we are. And I do not believe by any stretch of imagination that should be classified as human rights abuse when people are being made to account for breaking the law.
So how exactly was the law broken, one? And two, what exactly did this plot entail to overthrow the government?
Well, I guess that's what's being put before the courts, how the plot would work. And I'm not privy to what was found when search warrants were executed against or in the premises of these people, or certain communication devices were, probed through. I'm not privy to that because obviously, as you may appreciate, this is an ongoing case. So I'm not in a position, unfortunately, to give a running commentary to the case that is before the courts. And as you know, that would be considered to be sub judice. But there are allegations being made by the Prosecutor General, who is the prosecuting authority in Zimbabwe, who makes independent decision whether there is a prima facie case for anyone to answer or charges should be preferred against somebody. So that decision has been made. What I do not agree with is a situation where everybody is giving that running commentary to say there is a case to answer, there is no case to answer, no law has been broken, the law has been... Well, people are free to speak as they wish, but as government, we appreciate the authority that we have, and we appreciate the separation of powers between the judiciary, the legislature, and us as an executive. And because of that separation of powers, which is sanctimonious, we do not agree with the principle where we have an executive overreach and start leaning on the judiciary by saying there is enough evidence, there is not enough evidence, there is a lot. No, what we can only give is a policy position and a state of what actually is happening. So what's happening is the allegations against certain individuals, they've been arrested, and the judicial process is taking place.
So what are the charges being faced by Mr. Hopewell Chin'ono without getting into the specifics or the merits of the case?
Sorry, I missed the first few words.
I was asking the charges against Mr. Chin'ono,
your question, of course,
without getting into the merits of the case.
I haven't had a good peek at the charge sheet, but I would say casually that I think it's something to do with a plot to subvert a constitutional government or something along those lines. But to be honest, I haven't been taking a keen interest on the charge sheet itself.
But why not, Mr. Mangwana, given that this is such a high-profile case? It's gained so much traction outside of Zimbabwe, which has led to the Zimbabwean government being accused of human rights abuses and law enforcers also being accused of arresting and beating up people, as is the case with Hopewell Chin'ono. If these charges are so serious, and you, as the Secretary for Information, surely should have a handle on at least what exactly the charges are against Mr. Chin'ono.
I can get this charge sheet, but what I'm telling you, because obviously I didn't know we were going to speak about Mr. Chin'ono, and I don't have to cram his charge sheet in my head. But the point is, the charge has something to do with subverting a constitutional government. That's what is being charged of. What I can tell you is section what of whatever act of Zimbabwe, but that's the charge from my understanding.
So last month, South Africa sent an envoy to Zimbabwe, and is it correct that the Zimbabwean president actually did not want them to meet with the opposition parties? Is that a correct notion?
No, that's not a correct notion. It's a misinterpretation of the conversation probably that took place between two heads of state, that is His Excellency President Ramaphosa and President Mnangagwa. Our understanding of the situation is that the envoys were from President Ramaphosa to President Mnangagwa. Everything else, I don't know what it was, because there is no SADC mission on Zimbabwe, is there? But there is a bilateral relationship between between Zimbabwe and South Africa, and there is a very strong bilateral camaraderie between President Ramaphosa and President Mnangagwa. This is what we understand. But I don't think there is a situation, we were in a situation where South Africa arrogated itself authority to go and explore, go everywhere in Zimbabwe and find what's going on in Zimbabwe, speak to so and so in Zimbabwe. No, we, under what auspices? Under what authority? There is a bilateral relationship between the two neighboring countries who are, very, very cordial to one another. And in President Ramaphosa's case and President Mnangagwa's case, they are actually very, very good friends. So, one brother to another, they were exploring what's going on, and the envoys were sent back with a message, and we wait to hear what President Ramaphosa would say, because he's the one who originated the mission, and the response was given. So anything else, we're just giving ourselves to much speculation, probably for tabloid reasons.
Well, would the Zimbabwean government be opposed to South African envoys engaging with opposition parties and leaders?
Zimbabwe is not opposed to any SADC-led process as per signed protocols. And is not opposed to any possibly AU protocol, emissions as per signed protocols and some things that we undertook to do. I'm not sure what's under what auspices this particular mission would be done. If Zimbabwe would say, oh, maybe something happened in Marikana, we are sending a mission to South Africa, how would that augur? Or if Zimbabwe was to say today, there is something. There is a lot of xenophobia going on. Africans, black people are being chased all over the place and mutilated. We are sending a mission to find what's going on in South Africa. How would that sit with the South African authorities? I think that's the same way we should look at it, because we have dispute resolution or conflict resolution mechanism within the region, and that is via the organs, the SADC organs, and the summit itself. And Zimbabwe is not on the agenda, was not on the agenda of the last summit, which happened just about a week or so ago. So, I don't understand what else we're talking about here.
Which talking about perhaps trying to find solutions to the impasse in Zimbabwe, where the Zimbabwean government is being accused by members of the opposition, by civil society, and by ordinary citizens of being somewhat repressive, and also accused of brutality against people who are outspoken and who perhaps speak out against the state.
And where is the evidence? Every government is accused of something. If I go to South Africa, I'll find the South African government being accused of complicity, for example, in xenophobia by certain sections of its society. So is that an impasse? Does that reflect an impasse between a government and its citizens or stakeholders? It's not an impasse. There is no impasse in Zimbabwe. What impasse?
So would you say, would you
there is an opposition which has a position which is understandable in a democracy. There is a Zimbabwean government with a position which is understandable in a democracy.
The difference being that in South Africa, though...
Sorry, I missed your last word.
I'm saying... I'm saying the difference at this point being that in South Africa, if people do speak out against the government, they are allowed to do so. The allegation right now, if we go back to Hopewell Chin'ono, is that he was doing some work, investigative work on corruption during this COVID-19 period within government. And then he is actually arrested. And the South African Editors Forum, for example, in a letter that was sent to President Cyril Ramaphosa, William Bird of the media agency, one of the media agencies in South Africa, writing that letter to President Cyril Ramaphosa, was talking about this freedom of expression because it would seem as though the government of Zimbabwe does not respond very well to people expressing strong views against its government.
I will respectfully say that's nonsensical, actually, in the sense that if you read today's papers, I've given this before, today's papers, I can open them for you and read them for you. If people are expressing themselves in those papers, on social media, people are expressing themselves, nobody's being arrested. Because when people express themselves, they are fairly criticizing government, even unfairly criticizing government, and nothing is happening to them. It's only when people plot to overthrow the government, that's when something will happen.
But what is that?
Tell me
what does that constitute?
Investigated.
What
nothing.
constitutes?
Absolutely nothing. The people that broke the story. Sorry?
When you say people are plotting to overthrow government.
If you are plotting to overthrow the government, well, this is a matter before the courts. And if you are so interested in knowing what's actually constituted, what's the substance of his charge, please attend courts. And you will hear, and even during the bail hearings that are taking place, all those charges are being read.
Yeah, but I was hoping you would be able to tell me.
I don't believe it's fair for, people to say, yeah, sorry.
So, sorry.
I have no intention of speaking over you, so please do speak, and I'll speak after you.
Yes, I think the connection is not the best, so I also missed part of what you were saying there. But what I was saying is that when you talk about plotting to overthrow the government, surely when something as serious as that, because that's a treasonous act, is being plotted in a country, that there would be no ifs, buts or doubts about it. We wouldn't have to wait for the court to actually ventilate exactly how the plot was being orchestrated, because that would be known. What we would wait for, of course, is for those who allege to actually prove that it has happened, as will play out in the courts. So in this instance, quite a lot of talk, but it just seems a little suspect, I would say, Mr. Mangwana, that as the person who is responsible for information, the Secretary of Information, that you would not know. But I want to move on to other matters. You can factor a response into this. The Zimbabwean government is planning to pay... I cannot hear what you are saying, Mr. Mangwana. I was saying in other matters, the government is planning to pay white farmers about 3.5... Well, I must apologize there. The connection is not great to Mr. Mangwana, and it would seem as though it cuts out at certain points, making the conversation a bit difficult. But Mr. Mangwana, can you hear me now?
I can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Right. So I was going to say, last month, the Zimbabwean government said it was planning on paying white farmers about $3.5 billion in land compensation. So speak to us about that. Exactly what is the plan? And given the dire financial situation that Zimbabwe finds itself in, how exactly are you going to do this? Please explain to us.
The first point of correction is that Zimbabwe is not paying for land at all. There is nothing in the agreement that Zimbabwe will pay for land that was acquired from former white farmers. No, that land was taken for free from the indigenous Zimbabweans, and it is restored for free. But what Zimbabwe is paying for are the improvements that were on those farms, the developments that were on those farms. Now, what does that entail? That entails both the farmers and the government of Zimbabwe going out to raise the money. The agreement is that the money will be raised by both parties so that the farmers will be paid back for those improvements. So we're talking of irrigation systems, dams, and all the other infrastructure that were on the farms, but not for the land.
So how are you hoping to, where's the government for its part hoping to get the money from?
Well, it's going to raise the money, one, on the international scene, from donor agencies, from because when the original Lancaster House Agreement in 1979 also said that certain countries would play their parts. So the government will appeal to those certain countries who were the underwriters of that agreement to meet their parts. And also Zimbabwe will put some bonds on the market.
You failed to hold those countries to account who signed off on that Lancaster House Accord up until now, because they have subsequently gone on to claim the very same human rights abuses that you are currently still being accused of as some of the reasons why they would not honor that accord.
I'm sure you understand that the UNDP was part of this agreement itself. So this agreement also has other parties besides the two parties, which is the government of Zimbabwe and the former commercial farmers.
You're still not telling me how you are going to enforce it now when you have failed to enforce it over all these years. What's it been, 40 years since independence?
We are not saying we are enforcing. We are saying this agreement had parties and also people who underwrote it. So there is a lot of goodwill to raise that money. So one, there are obvious funds which are going to be raised internally. And Zimbabwe has already shown that it can do a lot of things internally. We're building a lot of roads, power stations and everything using internal funds actually, right now as I'm speaking to you. But we also, as I said, we are going to issue bonds, some 30-year bonds, which people have to, if people can invest in. And that is also part of our plan on how to raise that money.
Well, we'll wait and see, Mr. Mangwana. As you say, we should wait and see what comes out of the courts as well with regard to Hopewell Chin'ono, and we'll do just that, and we certainly will engage you further. But thank you so much for your time, Nick Mangwana, Zimbabwe Secretary for Information, discussing the country's socio-economic political impasse amid allegations of government crackdown and human rights violations. And that is where we are going to leave it.